This instructional video is going to focus on crossover tours for Title V employees. We are currently logged into VETAS as a timekeeper, and we are at the Timekeeper main menu. Regardless of whether you're building a schedule that consists of crossover tours or any other type of schedule, you will build that schedule under either Employee Schedules List View or Employee Schedules Grid View. It's really just a personal preference as to whichever one you feel most comfortable using. For this demonstration, we're going to use Employee Schedules Grid View. When you first go into Employee Schedules Grid View, you will see all of the employees that you are either a primary or a backup timekeeper for listed in alphabetical order, last name, comma, first name. We're going to be building this schedule for our full-time GS employee, with the last name being full-time, first name being GS employee. We find our employee on the left-hand side, and we click on the name. It is very important to know that when building a crossover schedule for a Title V employee, you must build a temporary schedule for the prior pay period, which we have already done. This schedule is going to be for pay period 8 of 2016, which begins on April 17th. That means our temporary schedule has to be for the prior pay period, April 3rd through April 16th. Let's take a look at the temporary schedule that we've already built. The most important thing to take away from the temporary schedule is that you must have the correct amount of hours flowing in to the permanent schedule. In this case, we need 7.5 hours to flow in to pay period 8 from our temporary schedule to our permanent schedule. And that's going to happen on Saturday. We have from 7:30 p.m. to 8 a.m. From midnight to 8 a.m. will flow into Sunday of our permanent schedule. And it will not be 8 hours. It will actually only be 7.5 because the half-hour lunch falls during that midnight to 8 a.m. time frame. Here you can see that our schedule is built for exactly 80 hours, which is correct. Notice that the hours on Saturday of week 1 in our temporary schedule that flow after midnight do go in to week 2's total. All right, let's go back to our schedule assignment, and we're going to use our breadcrumb, hyperlink, whatever it is that you want to call it. We're going to select Add Permanent Schedule. And again, this permanent schedule is going to be for pay period 8 of 2016. Regarding naming your schedule, whether it's a permanent or a temporary, it's kind of up to you as a timekeeper how you want to name those schedules. What I would recommend is that whatever naming convention you come up with, you stay consistent with it. And work with your backup timekeepers as well so that they know exactly how you want your schedules named. For this demonstration, we'll just call it Full-Time GS. The weeks, it is defaulted to 2. It will always remain 2. That's asking how long are our pay periods, and the answer is 2 weeks. So you will never change the weeks drop-down box. The start date will always be defaulted to the first day of the pay period. And for this example, we do not need to change that start date. Permanent schedules will never have an end date, which is why there is no asterisk beside the end date field. Once again, you will never fill in the end date on a permanent schedule. As we scroll down a bit, if we look at week 1, here are those 7.5 hours that flowed over from the temporary schedule that we built. And once again, that was the whole purpose of building that temporary schedule, is to have the correct amount of hours flowing in to our permanent schedule. The schedule that we're going to build for our full-time GS employee is they're going to work from 7:30 p.m. to 8 a.m. on Sunday, Friday, and Saturday of each week. So we need to put the check in the boxes for Sunday, Friday, and Saturday of each week. We will then select Insert Tour. This is why we recommend that you come up with a cheat sheet of the tours of duty that you frequently use. We already know that the schedule name is 0272. So when we type it in and search, we will get one result rather than having to sift through hundreds, if not thousands, of possible tours of duty. We will then click on the tour to turn it dark blue. You must click on it and turn it dark blue. Give it a moment. Once it turns dark blue, we will then select OK. Let's let those tours of duty populate into our schedule. We now have 36 hours in week 1, 36 hours in week 2. We're short 8 hours because we need this schedule to come out to exactly 80 hours. And on Thursday of week 1, our employee works an 8-hour day from 11:30 p.m. to 8 a.m. And we're going to use our cheat sheet, and we've already looked up that that tour is 0355. So we search, and once again, you must click on the tour of duty and turn it dark blue. If you do not click on the tour and turn it dark blue, it will insert the last tour that you had selected into the schedule. Once this populates, we will have our 80 hours, 44 hours in week 1, 36 hours in week 2. We then scroll to the bottom and submit. Successfully submitted the work schedule. This schedule is now pending, and this is very important to know because your supervisors may ask you this question, but schedules do not need to be approved by the supervisor any longer. Once again, schedules do not need to be approved by the supervisors any longer. And the thought process behind this is that when supervisors certify timesheets on Timesheet Friday, they're not only certifying that the time has been posted correctly, but they are also certifying that the schedule is correct. I would like to point out one last thing on our schedule. In Vista, the old timekeeping system, when you built a compressed schedule, you had to take that one extra step and insert the compressed indicator. In VETAS, we no longer have the compressed indicator. What we have is the AWS code, which stands for Alternate Work Schedule. The Alternate Work Schedule, or AWS code, for the particular schedule that we just built would be a 6. An AWS code of 6 means they are working a compressed schedule with uneven hours in each week, which is exactly the schedule. 44 in week 1, 36 in week 2, they are uneven. The AWS code needs to be changed to a 6. And it is very important that the AWS codes are correct. Now, you do not change the AWS codes here under the schedule building portion of VETAS. Let's go back to our Timekeeper main menu, and we'll use our breadcrumb or hyperlink once again. And we're now going to go to Select Employees. Select Employees is where you will build your where you will change your AWS codes. So let's find our full-time GS employee, and we're going to put the check in front of their name, and at the bottom, Timesheet Profile. This is where you change the AWS codes. And it's not something that's very difficult to figure out because under the Timesheet Profile, the AWS code is the only thing that you can change. Here, we see the drop-down box beside AWS code. It's currently a 0. We're going to scroll down and select a 6 for a compressed schedule, scroll to the bottom, and save. It's that easy to change an AWS code. Timesheet Profile saved. Let's again go back to Select Employees. And now, let's take a look at the timesheet for our full-time GS employee based off of the schedule that we just built. We have the check in front of the employee's name. We're going to go down to Timesheet. Notice that we see the schedule that we just built reflected at the bottom of our employee's timesheet. The first day that we would need to post time would be on Sunday. However, we recommend that before you post time, you press the Validate button. And it's important to know that you're pressing the Validate button with the intention of getting these error messages, these validation messages. You're not pressing that Validate button with the intention of actually validating the timesheet. You do not want to validate the timesheet until the end of the pay period once you have all time posted. The first day that we would need to post on our employee schedule would be Sunday the 17th. We click on Sunday and we apply tour. Notice, when we applied the tour on Sunday, it posted a total of 19.5 hours. Here are the 7.5 hours that came over from our temporary schedule that we built, which once again was the entire reason we built that temporary schedule. The remaining hours were from 7:30 to midnight on Sunday and then from midnight until 8 a.m. on Monday. Once again, the reason that Monday reflects 7.5 hours and not 8 is because the meal, the lunch, is built into that portion of the schedule, and here you can see that. The next day that we would need to post would be Thursday. We'll select Thursday and apply tour. And remember, we want you to post time the day after. So the next day that we would be posting would be Friday, and you would not post Friday until that following Monday when you're back in the office, unless you happen to work Saturday or Sunday. So we will apply tour. And finally, let's finish out week 1 by applying the tour on Saturday the 23rd. Notice 7.5 hours rolled into week 2, which is exactly correct, because once again, that is that midnight to 8 a.m. with a 30-minute meal. Let's work on posting week 2. We select Sunday and apply tour. The next day that the employee is scheduled to work is Friday the 29th. We select that day, apply tour, and we have one last day to post time for. So let's select Saturday and apply tour. We now have all time posted. Now for those of you who also have Title 38 employees with crossover tours, you may be thinking to yourself, well, I know when I posted that last day for my Title 38 employee, I received a blue message telling me that the remaining hours flowed into the next pay period's timesheet. And you're exactly right. You do receive that message for Title 38 crossover schedules, but you do not receive that message with Title 5 crossover schedules. So I wanted to point that out for any of you who are watching this video thinking to yourself, well, that seems a little bit different. But it's okay. That's expected for your Title 5 employees. We now think that we have all time posted, so we now want to validate this timesheet. And this time, when we press the validate button, we do want the timesheet to actually validate. We select validate, and we have our blue banner of success, timesheet validated successfully. Let's one last time go back to our main menu. And let's change to pay period 9, the next pay period. Notice that there's only 2 timesheets open for pay period 9. One's for our full-time GS employee, and the other is for our full-time RN. The reason that we only have 2 timesheets open for pay period 9 is because these are the only 2 employees who had hours that crossed over into that next pay period. So let's look at the timesheet for our full-time GS employee that we were just working with. When we open it up, notice the hours have not currently flowed to that timesheet. We have to apply tour to get those ghost hours, as some like to call them, onto the timesheet. Now it's important to know that when that next pay period's timesheet automatically opens, as it just did in our demonstration, it's very important to leave that timesheet open. Do not delete that timesheet. Once you apply the tour on the very first day of the pay period, those ghost hours, as we like to call them, will populate to the timesheet. Let's now go back to our main menu.